We've done this service. This is the third service today, and I noticed I did something wrong the first service. I repeated it again in the second service, and I went for the trifecta tonight. It's a 3 for 3. I always forget to introduce who I am. So if you don't know it, I'm Pastor Eric Elkin. I'm the lead pastor here. And if you haven't taken notice, we probably have the tallest pastor staff in North America. So we don't judge people on the character or the quality of their words. We judge them on height, okay? So just so you know that. Planning this Christmas Eve service began in October with an image. Lindsay, our children's minister of faith formation, started proposing different ideas to me, and all of them centered around children playing in snow. Not necessarily a traditional image for a Christmas Eve service held in night in solemn peace, but I love the approach. When she found this image right here, we both knew this was the one, and ever since, this image has shaped not only my Advent and my Christmas celebration, but I've actually kind of started to obsess on it. And it's in my morning and evening thoughts. Maybe some of you have aged to the point where you no longer see the joy of snow. You see only the labor of shoveling, of plowing, walking tenderly on ice, and the need for multiple layers of sweaters. To many people, snow is a hassle, a burden, something you desire to flee from, not to. But tonight I'm going to ask you to set that all aside. And for a moment, remember when you were a child. Remember when you knew snow, especially a lot of snow, meant no school. And I don't care how old you get and the level of profession you have, honestly, you know you wake up in the morning, you might be 50 years old and a corporate executive and go, oh, there's snow. We might have a snow day. I know you do. Remember when you knew snow meant a snow day and you raced outside to be the first one to put those imprints on the freshly fallen snow. And I invite you to remember the joy, the peace, the quiet, and how your whole body delighted in the play. Looking at this image, I invite you to dream. For me, when I look at that image, I see my 9-year-old self. Our family is living on 35 Roosevelt Drive in Painesville, Ohio. And I remember waking up and looking outside my window, and there was this massive snow. And looking out of that window was just like looking into a magical wonderland, and I raced to get outside. And I wasn't there long before all the kids in the neighborhood had joined me. And the snow was so deep, we could climb on the basketball hoop across the street, because across the street was the playground for the elementary school. And so I could climb up to the top of that basketball hoop, and we jumped off. We jumped off and just threw our bodies in the snow, and it was so deep, it was like falling on a pile of pillows. We played until we were all soaking wet. And then we went inside and waited very impatiently for our clothes to dry so we could go outside and do it again. In this picture, I see my mother-in-law looking out the window of our house in Newport, Minnesota. And I can't remember was she like 88 years old, 86, 87? I can't remember, something like that. But she just looked out, she sat on our couch and was looking out the window like a child. And you could tell she wanted to go sledding. And so somebody, I don't even know who it said, hey, Mom, you want to go sledding? And without a hesitation, she goes, yes. So we dressed her up and we took her out sledding. And I desperately pressed the family for the pictures of that because I know we took a video of it. And then I remembered it wasn't me who took the video, because my job was to be at the bottom of the hill and stop her so she didn't go into oncoming traffic. Good choices. Good choices. Looking at this picture reminded me of driving through rural Mississippi when they got a freak snowstorm. And all the children in every little town we went through had just been like children out in the snow, laughing and playing. They were filled with joy and peace as they played, and you could see it on their faces. To me, there is no greater sensation of peace and joy like a child playing in the snow. And peace on earth. See, when we decided to choose this image, it was a couple days later that we discussed the theme of on earth peace, because when the time came for the theme, it came days after Hamas terrorists stormed the predominantly peace-minded kibbutzes of Israel and rained death and terror on those communities. And then Israel responded by bombing the people of Gaza, most of whom had nothing to do with the attack. I mean, go ahead, pick your side. But the truth is, the majority of Israelites, Israelis, and Palestinians whose lives were thrown into death and despair, all they want to do is live in peace. Consider all these things. My heart desired one thing, and it's a familiar phrase at this time of the year, on earth peace. Unfortunately, it was more of a longing than it was than a proclamation. Once again, we have to gather at Christmas time to celebrate the one we call the Prince of Peace when the world feels consumed with hatred and violence and destruction. It leaves even the most optimistic person wondering, is peace a wish or a dream we desire but cannot know? Something that's always eluding our grasp. I was struggling to find harmony and hope between my dream of peace and the reality of war when Tom Adams, back there in the tech booth, sent a note, reminded me this Christmas Eve, December 24th, is the 55th anniversary of Apollo 8 space mission. They broadcast their flight on Christmas Eve, and if you don't remember it, or if you want a short refresher course, I want you to watch this video real quick.
Apollo 8, this is Houston. Roger. Good to hear your voice.
People on Earth tend to call the far side of the moon the dark side, but that's a misnomer. On our flight, the moon was between the Earth and the sun, and the far side was lit by the sun.
We saw the far side. You know, we were like three school kids looking through a candy store window, I guess, just staring at the unnamed craters as they slowly passed us by.
We were busy shooting pictures of the lunar surface for lunar landing sites for upcoming lunar landings. And then suddenly I looked out the window and here was this gorgeous orb coming up, and I thought, holy moly.
And there over the lunar landscape was the Earth. The Earth was beautiful. It was the only thing in the whole universe that had any color.
I had fought to have a long lens and color film. I didn't have a light meter, just banged off a dozen or so pictures, changing the f-stop each click.
I put my thumb up to the window of the spacecraft, and I could completely hide the Earth behind my thumb. The Earth is a mere speck in the Milky Way galaxy. Look what we have here. Water and an atmosphere. We're orbiting a star just at the proper distance to absorb that star's energy. God has given mankind a stage upon which to perform. How the play turns out is up to us.
If you don't know this, last person to speak was Jim Lovell. Most of you might know him better as Tom Hanks in the movie Apollo 13. After that message, they started reading the story of creation, and they ended it with a message to the earth, to all the good people on the good earth, good night, and God bless. All of us on the good earth. Here's the thing. 55 years ago was 1968, and all the things on earth were not good, and all those astronauts knew it. The most hotly debated issue during that presidential election was whether it was right to stop carpet bombing Vietnam. The 1968 Democratic National Convention was a nightmare of violence. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated for suggesting God formed humans as good regardless of skin color. Robert Kennedy was assassinated after giving a campaign speech that suggested we replace hatred and violence with compassion and love. The world was not at peace, and for many it felt on the verge of collapse when Bill Anders took color pictures of a pale blue orb above the surface of the moon. Christmas Eve, 1968, was the first time the entire population could look beyond itself and see our planet as the universe sees our planet, a light in the field of darkness, a perfect whole sphere hovering in peace. How could such a good earth, so peacefully suspended in space, be so full of hatred? When Tom talked to me about this, he said, were you old enough to remember? Oh, you probably weren't old enough to remember where you were. And I was so grateful that he could acknowledge that he is significantly older than myself. But it did get me to thinking, where was I? Because I remember my mom made sure we watched all those space flights. I was 5 years old. I was 5 years old, and my family was living in Orchard Park, New York, a suburb of Buffalo. And I don't remember watching it, but my thoughts quickly left that Apollo 8 to think about our house, our life, at that time in my life. One of the funniest memories I have from that Christmas was my brother and I running through the house when my mother was trying to bake Christmas cookies. And we kept on running by, we'd run through and we'd sneak cookie dough on her, and she kept on yelling at us, you better knock it off, you better knock it off, you better knock it off. And one time we went too far, so she picked up a broom and she chased us outside. And we were in our pajamas, we didn't even have shoes on. And she closed the door and we sat there. I just remember going, oh boy, we went too far. She quickly let us back in. But I'll tell you right now, we did not sneak any more cookie dough. As a child, I could not see the world as an adult. I had no clue what my parents were going through at the time. I was too busy chasing and playing in snow. Christmas Eve, 1968 in Orchard Park, New York, could not have been a season of peace for my family. Less than a month later, I would be attending the second half of my kindergarten year in Painesville, Ohio. When I come to places, people say, where are you from? And they don't realize what a complicated answer that is. See, I was born in Wilmer, Minnesota. We moved to Marshalltown, Iowa, then to Orchard Park, New York, and then to Painesville, Ohio. We had lived in 4 states in 5 years, not the norm in 1968. But it wasn't until this December that I really thought about the anxieties and fears dwelling in my parents' hearts and minds back then. It made me think about a conversation I had with my daughter not long ago. She had no idea what Peggy and I were going through when she was a child. And I had no idea what we were going through, how it impacted her and Peter. See, the dumbest thing about adults and parents in general, we think children never listen. And unfortunately, they listen better than we want them to. How I wish I could go back and have people cling to the hopes, the peace, the joys, and not the anxieties and the fears. Why share this? Because sometimes the fears that destroy our experience of peace has nothing to do with bombs and war. The Hebrew word for peace, shalom, eirene in Greek, means complete or whole. Peace is a process, an action of making something whole and complete. We are invited to see in Jesus the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy when he told the people a time's going to come when a future king, a prince of shalom, will arrive, and his reign will bring shalom with no end, a time when God will make a covenant of shalom with God's people to make all things right and heal all that's been broken. Now I want you to look at this image and dream. Look at how perfectly round, smooth that planet looks. It is a model of Hebrew peace. It is complete and whole. When you look at it, can you see the bombs, the hunger, the crime, the homelessness, the violence? If you're old enough, can you see yourself on that planet? I love Jim Hovell's observation and some that he could take his thumb and completely make the planet disappear. Not just the planet, but 3.5 billion people could disappear. And there's a part of me, when I think of the violence of the world, wouldn't it be nice if you could just take your thumb and cover it up? You wouldn't have to look at it. Here's the problem. If you do that, you cover up so many beautiful things. So many awesome, beautiful things. Tonight, as we gather, as we look at that image, I want you to think of Jesus as something more than a belief system, some morality code. I want you to think of Jesus as peace. As peace. I love what Jim Lovell says. God has given humanity a stage upon which to perform, and the reality is, the truth is, God has given us everything that we need. God has given us enough water to drink, enough land to live on. God has given us enough air to breathe, and even trees to sustain the air. And what do we do with it? 3/4 of the earth is covered with water, and still people don't have fresh water to drink. We have the ability to feed everybody, and still there's hunger. But here's the thing. Christ has also given us the tools for peace. Reconciliation, forgiveness, mercy, grace, patience. Jesus comes and invites us to look into every human face and see the fingerprint of God. One of the reasons I like snow so much. If you were out this afternoon running around, you could see that everything in the wintertime is dead and brown. Oh yeah, there's several different shades of brown out there, I know, but it's dead and brown. And then when we're at our darkest and most depressed time, snow comes and things are bright and beautiful, and we're allowed to dream, we're allowed to play, we're allowed to experience joy, and we're reminded that darkness and despair, war, famine, poverty, they don't always last. There's always a new beginning for God's good creation on this good earth. So as we part from this night and go out into the world, remember that we are given the tools to be peacemakers. We are given the tools to live on an earth in peace. Amen.